What's up everybody? Dara here again. Today I want to do a walkthrough to the farm and talk a little bit about everything that's going on right now because it's been a while since I've done that. The last two videos were more focused on one aspect of the farm, but I think a walkthrough is in order. So we're gonna start directly into the greenhouse due to the fact that it's already planted. There's already tomato grown. That last video was recorded on February, the end of February, but there was a bunch of technical problems that I wanted to make two videos but didn't happen. I wanted to make two videos at the greenhouse but that didn't happen, so I pretty much made one video out of those two. And yeah, but either ways, let me show you the greenhouse, how it's been progressing. Yeah, today is April 8th and you guys can see how the tomatoes and now a little bit of cucumbers too are doing in the greenhouse. Let's go. Yeah, as you can see, there's a bunch of tomato plants already planted and some few cucumbers on the right side. But so yeah, these tomato plants and the cucumbers were already planted by around 3 weeks ago. So because the video was made in end of February to now, it's a big gap in time frame that the plants were grown. The plants were put in the soil, but most of the tomatoes are growing quite fast and I am happy about that. And most of them are already producing some few tomatoes. Some of them I do cut off the flowers so that I prefer them to grow right now, not to produce, so that they can grow better and use the heat right now to grow faster. But as you guys can see, yep, as you can see this one tomato plant. It already has one truss and the second truss there. So you guys can see that this tomato plant already has a truss. Most of these flowers are already pollinated. And here's the second truss, this one being its first truss. And I'm doing the same way, the double leader, so that there's a head here and there's a head here going up. When they're this small, I'm not pruning them, I'm just letting them grow higher. So at a certain point, I will start pruning the crop. But right now, I'm just removing suckers and seeing that their health is good and seeing that they are healthy and growing great. This week, I am starting with fertilization, so I'm going to use compost tea every other week for when they're small so that they can get constant nutrient. But yeah, other than that, I did not film it. But this soil, this is where the tomato plants are growing, pretty much each one of those beds have a bunch of worms in it. I don't know if let me see if I can find some few for you guys. I don't want to affect the roots of the tomatoes, but let me put you here. Let's see if we can find a tomato, this worm. Thing. Yep, here we go. Oops, little guy. So most of the beds have a bunch of worms in it. Let me put this little guy back. Returning over these beds, I did see that all these beds have worms and they have a pretty big population of worms in it. So that was just one, but at most of the point when I was pretty much turning over or loosening the beds, I could have seen a bunch of worms at every time. I was even a bit scared for killing a bunch of them, but yeah, I need to work and sometimes it just happens. But yeah, I'm not going to be touching the soil for the next 3 to 4 months, so they will have enough time for them to grow back and grow vigorously. Yeah, I did switch over this tubing. This is drip emitter. These are heavy duty pipes, not like drip tape. These have 9-inch spacings and they're dropping about a half a gallon. I have only 2 lines going for the plants for each row. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about the tomato greenhouse and just to show you guys how everything is growing. I do got some few cukes. I do got some few cuke plants, but these are more maintenance to grow. These are more maintenance to grow, and I think more in the summer when these tomato plants are up and pretty much done, I'm going to be switching over this greenhouse into cucumber production, because cucumber you have to keep turning over every time. So I'll let you guys know when we get there. So either ways, let's go to the secondary plot. So yeah, we're at the secondary plot. This spot I have, since the first video, I had a lot of problems with it. The compost that I got was not that great. I usually get good compost out of the company. Yeah, the compost wasn't that great. I usually get good compost out of the company, but this time, this main plot that I was using for main fertilization was not that great. But either ways, you keep going. Either ways, it was planned to be at least 50% the same production rate as the main plot, but it didn't even came close. It pretty much was zero, so I pretty much wasn't producing anything. But right now I did invest a lot in fertilization, in worm castings, some organic fertilization, and some bat guano, so that it would boost up the soil nutrient in this. So far it's been doing pretty well. Most of these beds are going into production, but not fully into production as the main plot. But I was not expecting it to be 100% the same, but I was minimal at least 50%. But it wasn't even getting there. But right now it does seem like it's going to be there. So without further ado, let me show you some of the beds. So this being 2 beds of pure kale. These are dinosaur kale and also some scarlet. These are the red purple. These are these beautiful red purple types of kale. They are growing quite nice, and this section was a different test. So this small section that has no landscape fabric is a small test for me to see that I can grow more kale in a smaller area. Because most of the kale have a larger spacing. This one has a small spacing, but the idea is that I'm going to be harvesting more out of it in the same amount of area. But because I am constantly harvesting, they will not crowd each other. That was the idea behind it. But that's why this one doesn't have landscape fabric. In the future, I'm going to make a landscape fabric that has the same sizing as this. So it mitigates weed and lowers a bit of evaporation. This half of the block of this zone is pretty much on drip. These are the 12-inch spacings, half a gallon drip emitters, the heavy duty ones. So I got kale in the first 2 beds. In the secondary bed, I have what's bean, that's called poncilado. That's native here and a lot of people like it. So I got a bed here, another bed here, and then 2 other beds here. This one being the only one that's producing right now. This is just a succession. You guys can see all the flowers that are coming up, and some of them are already producing, as you can see here. But most of them are in flower, and most of them are growing right now. It's quite beautiful. It's growing quite beautifully, and you can see like the purple flowers are like just popping with the green vegetation. It looks quite pretty. This is also on drip, and this is the succession how I'm going to be planting it. Every 2 weeks I'll be planting a whole bed of moncilado or beans, and you can see at front you can see the few succession that this one was planted. 2 weeks after this one was planted, 2 weeks after this one was planted, and yeah, last week this one was planted. So the idea was that I would always have a succession of moncilado just to grow here, but they're all on drip, so the water cost is pretty low for them. There is a slight overlap of the overhead irrigation, but that's not big of a deal for me. Just a little bit of water extra, doesn't mind. But right next to it we got some, this is arugula. that is grown completely under insect net. I've been constantly being attacked by flea beetles and also at the spot, so I am using more insect net right now. But either way, that was arugula, and then we got beets. New succession of beets are growing quite nicely. And this being my old bed of kale that is going to be removed this week. So yeah, there's some Swiss chard at the end. Swiss chard, this bed is open. These are arugula, more arugula, carrots, and at the end also arugula. This small section of the bed, this block section did produce a little bit better than the first one that I showed you with the buncellaro, but the overall production was still pretty low. So yeah, that's kind of what's been growing here. I also have some few beds at the end right now that I'm busy just watering, trying to help with fertilization, that are going to be Italian basil. So that's going to be nice to have that also. But that's just a small overview of this spot. As I said, this spot has a bunch of problems that was with it, but lately, because I've been putting a lot more fertilization into the soil, it's been helping quite a bit. But I am going to be needing to switch this over in the future to a high rotation pot, because right now most of the plants are not in the same high production as the main spot, because the main spot, most of the crops are done in 2 months, sorry. So most of the crops are done in about 2 months. I do let them go out a little bit longer due to the fact that the nutrient isn't that high in the soil. And yeah, and then there's a higher water cost that also has to be considered into the prices of these crops. But for the time being, it seems to be at least producing something, so that's why I'm kind of happy. I'm pretty happy with the buncellaro because this is the first time I ever grown it. I've been a farmer for about 5 years and I never grew it. And it's really a traditional thing about it here, so that's a fun experience. I'm gonna see how it goes. So far it looks pretty nice, it's going nice. And production wise, I did grow a crop just for seed production because you can't find anyone who's willing to sell you in bulk seeds. So I had to grow a bed just for seed production, but right now I have enough seed to last me for about 5 months. So then I have to start up with a new crop just for seed. It's kind of a bummer. These kind of crops, I just want them just get seeds and just plant. I don't want to grow plants for seed. It takes a long time for me in my section. So if anybody wants to sell me buncellaro seeds, hit me up in the comment section down below or send me a mail and we'll talk. Because I am really willing to buy some few seeds, because growing seeds for me in my production, in my operation, it's not worth it because the water cost is so high and just the production overall is not worth the time and effort to grow seeds. But anyways, it looks, so far the beds are looking pretty nice right now. So yeah, we're at the main plot right now, and this plot is mostly right now the two main crops that I have. That is lettuce and beets. They are pretty much interchangeable. That's one, pretty much I plant a bed of lettuce and then replant it with a bed of lettuce, and then I switch over to beets. Give it 2 weeks, then before I plant the next bed of lettuce, I put another compost layer on top, and then I plant lettuce again. And this is pretty much not the best way to grow the crops, but due to the fact that my constraint that the main spot is not in production, the secondary spot is not in production, I cannot move pretty much the lettuce because the lettuce needs a lot of fertilizer and a lot of attention, and that the new beds don't have that. So I had to pretty much turn over this whole spot into beets and lettuce production. It is not ideal, but you gotta do it sometimes. Sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. But you guys can pretty much see that this is a beets bed. This was a lettuce bed last week. I pretty much harvested this one. Now let's pan you over. This being the last bed that I'm going to do plant tomorrow. That's Friday at 9th of April. Lettuce and beets. And for me not to be joking with you guys, this is lettuce. I harvested 2 weeks ago. This is beets, lettuce, lettuce. At the end is beets. It's not ideal to have a crop that's constantly growing at the same spot. To be even worse, something like a lettuce that are high nutrient feeders. It's not ideal to do it like this. And I have seen some few problems that come up due to the fact that it sucks up on the nutrient. Some of the beds that I have normally with lettuce that are growing up do get a bit weedy because they're sucking up all the nutrient and the weeds are coming up. And yeah, the lettuce don't grow that quickly as normally. But yeah, well, that's farming sometimes. And everything doesn't work out precisely. And this works for now. In the future, I am adapting it to that. I put a lot more nutrient here so that I don't get much of the problems. So I am constantly giving it nutrient. Well, it's not ideal because it does raise up my cost for beds, but it is the only way that I can do this right now. That growing lettuce and beets at the same time, and pretty much planting a bed 2 times with lettuce, one after the other, to try to maximize the space. So not ideal, but you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. Till that spot becomes fully productive, I can't switch anything here. So yeah, I hope everybody found this interesting on just how everything is growing so far. The lettuce and beets, the main plot is a situation that I'm not happy about, but sometimes just things have to happen and you gotta produce something to cover up all the other costs that are attributed with the farm. Sometimes that just happens, but I'm hoping that in the future, when the secondary pot is into production, so that I can start switching over the lettuce over into the other bed on the other side, so that I can leave the beds a little bit more time for them to recover. It is not ideal, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a bunch of projects that I need to finish this month. Most of the project that was last month, that was March, are pretty much done. That is cleaning up the greenhouse, rebuilding that, and the big project was fertilizing all the beds at the secondary spot that I showed you. Ooh! The dog wanted to say hi. So don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps me out a lot, and yeah, to keep the channel growing and helping me to take more time into making more videos and more educational. So it will help me a lot. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace. Passe bom dia.